flight boss, bitch. You know, for sure. You're not listening to the Mind of an Antares Move. I'm the Archangel Uriel, and I'm here to carry out God duties and motherfucking responsibilities. And we're going to talk about Venus in retrograde. Venus in motherfucking retrograde. Now, look, check this out. Before we even get into Venus itself, let's talk about a retrograde. Now, like I said, you are a star, just like these motherfucking influences that's above you, right? So, for the most part, you need to know this. Let's break it down on the third dimensional level so you can understand how you go into retrograde with your own transits every day. Now, check this out. This for all my females and men out there. Now, y'all ever had them times y'all sat back and then y'all started to think about a memory that you have had? I don't care if it was a pleasant one or a negative one, right? And this actual memory that you start to submerge yourself in kind of takes you out of the realm of reality that you are in the present moment. So for the most part, all right, say somebody made you upset wherever you went. Say you walked through the park and somebody stepped on your shoes, or you went out, or you know what I'm saying, you had a conversation with someone and the conversation didn't go your way. Or if you at work, right? And then you got off at work and now someone pissed you off in these areas. Or you went to a store or something like that, right? And somebody pissed you off in these areas. Now that's on your heart now. It's on your mind now. And your mind, once something hits your mind, your frequency, it start to fuck with your vibe. AKA it start to resonate with your vibration. And how much you start to pay that attention, you will vibe in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional realm, move your spirit on into that space and start manifesting shapes and forms and conscious bodies out of there. So be careful of that shit. But for the most part, let's just say like you leave from these places and someone got on your nerves and these things is on your mind and on your feelings and emotions now, right? So boom, first and foremost, one of the first things you're going to do is go tell somebody else about it. You know what I'm saying? Or you're going to go home or go over your friend house or family member house or something like that. And then you're not going to be totally 100% into the present, because these things that happened in the past, you carried it into the present. So if you're going to be in the present world, if you're going to be in the past world, in the present, then your spirit is not in the present, just your physical. But your spirit is actually into a vessel that you have created, a thought form or feeling an emotion in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension. And your spirit have went in there, that spaceship, and traveled to that space and location, fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional wise. But that space and location vortex energy signature isn't resonating in the same way as the actual space you are in the present, in the physical form. So you end up being in two different places at one time. So this is why a lot of times people could see you being frustrated, or people could see you being happy and present, but people could look at you and look at your aura and kind of could tell that you're in a state of having something that you have that came from the past or a memory. And it could have happened 10 minutes ago or an hour ago or a day ago or a month ago. But for the most part, if it's in your Akashic records and you're carrying that past to the present and you're living in that past state while being in the present, you need to know you're in two different places at one time. So keep that in mind also. So when we actually talking about retrograde, right? This is nothing more, nothing less, but you being in retrograde. See what I'm saying? So when you take that to a fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional level, this is how you can kind of understand why a star will appear to be stationary or appear to be moving backwards. Now, you need to understand this for the most part. Now, when you are stuck in a memory or a past or something like that while you're in the present right now, like you got shit on your mind and shit like that, and people can see it on you, what you need to know is you're in the past. So spiritually, in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional realm, it appears that you moved backwards, because if you're moving through space but you're going back to a space you already experienced in a third dimension, that plays out as an experience or a situation due to a person, place, or thing. But in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional realm, that plays as you traveling through the astral realm in your spaceship. Now, if you are going back to a memory, aka a past, aka a circumstance or a situation that affected you a certain way, then in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension, you did go back. It will appear that your spirit is going backwards, or that light body that your spirit is in appears to be going backwards due to the fact your third dimensional body that you are in. But when I broke it down third dimensional wise, when you're just in a situation where you're in two places at one time, but you're still in the present state, then you need to understand that you're actually stuck. So you're actually stationary. So think about it like this: a person who stay in their feelings and emotions, or a person who stay in the past, they constantly cry about things that have already happened and things of that nature. When you look at their life, what is one of the examples you see in their life? Non moving forward, not overcoming obstacles, not pushing in life. You know what I'm saying? Not going through things. So you have to come to the conclusion that they're stuck. So they're stuck. So what's actually going on is they're stationary. So when you look at a fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional vessel as a star, as a planet, right? When you hear a planet being in retrograde, right? If you was in the fourth and fifth and sixth dimension, it's really just a person or a vessel or organism or cell, whatever y'all want to call it, being stationary. A spirit in that shape and form at the moment, being stuck in the past and not moving forward at the moment. Based upon if it was a positive or a negative situation, they wanted to still experience that situation without experiencing the present or moving on to the future. So they're stuck in that one shape and form, that space. So when you're looking at it from a third dimensional wise, it will be a planet appearing to be stationary. Now, seventh, eighth, and ninth dimensional wise, compared to a fourth, fifth, or sixth dimensional vessel, that spirit that's in that vessel will be a spiritual ninth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth dimensional being. So technically, in that realm, it would appear that they're going backwards and going into the past. The same way I just explained it to you. You are a first, second, and third dimensional being. So you're in the present, but spiritually, that you will be a spiritual fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional being, because you was birthed from those shapes and forms. You see what I'm saying? So the spirits in them that came from the seventh, eighth, and ninth dimension and created shapes and forms in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension, you are their seeds. This is why we even created the existence of the first, second, and third dimension. And this is why it came later. So when y'all look at y'all number systems as 1, 2, 3 and think that's first before you get to 4, 5, 6, in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension, it is actually the other way around. 9 is first. You know what I'm saying? 8 is second. 7 is third. You see what I'm saying? So you need to keep that in mind. So the third dimensional realm of reality that these spiritual Elohims and things of that nature have created, as far as from their spectrum, right? They was a spirit from the 9, experienced the fruits of labor of wanting to imagine, so they created time, and then they came into a shape and form. They squared themselves off and became the 7, which is why the 7 number is so powerful, because it's one of the shapes, and it's the third, is the physical representation of shapes and forms that these vehicles, that these spirits was creating. And just by default, them becoming 7-dimensional beings, that created the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensional realm, right? So that's where things get elusive, subconscious, yin realm, you know what I'm saying, right brainish. That's when things get attractive and things of that nature, because you have a bunch of spiritual beings who created lights, aka imaginations, aka light. What light do? Attract, you know what I'm saying? So they created a lot of attractions. So now we got a bunch of reflections and bouncing off of lights and things of that nature, and that's the totality of the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension. So you're basically going to hell. Now I hate to say hell in the 3rd dimension, because y'all got different kind of concepts of it, but really you're going to the land of fire and water, you know what I'm saying, the land of steam and mist, basically, when you're going to the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension. So if you're having a flame, water, steam, and mist type of shape and form you're creating for yourself, then that lets you know what kind of vehicles and kind of bodies you're going to have there. So that's why it's giving you the kind of concept is going to be dragons and all kind of shit. So based upon the 3rd dimension, this is very low vibrational and physical form like. So all the species or all the kinds that you see, right, they are just offsprings of the oversoul. So they're just offsprings of the overall idea of that. So you see lions, tigers, bears, oh my, you see humans, you see bugs and things of that nature. These are small representations of an overall idea, aka an oversoul. Now oversoul is a light that's emitted that have been created in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension, aka a physical shape and form. Since that body is so large in the 3rd dimension, whatever play out those characteristics, you see that it lived through it, because it planned out those characteristics and it's taking smaller representations of the shape and form of that overall idea. So all those species are living through that being as blood cells and things of that nature. So if you are mankind in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensional realm, then you need to understand what kind of concepts is going going on with men, real women like beings. So say you are a man and woman in the third dimension. What is your highest capabilities here? The ability to reason, your ability to analyze and conceptualize your imagination and your dreams, aka make a square circle between your right and left brain. So your ability down here is to imagine, think, and then you create, right? So actually you get to manifest and create whatever how you see yourself. The moment you start to see yourself the way outside people see you, you are letting outside imaginations dictate your own imagination, so you have gave your power away. But we all have this energy signature and power. So if that's your highest magnitude here, then you need to know in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension, down here in the third dimension, you are just a smaller version of that overall concept, of that overall idea. So that overall person that we all, as not me, but as you humans, humanity live through as a blood cell, that overall being is a fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional being as a shape and form. But as I explained the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension before, that lets you know what kind of body it's having. It's a body compared to you probably won't even be able to see it. It's more ghostly, more transparent, shapeless, formless, non-flammable, odorless, non-flammable gas type shit. You know what I'm saying? But in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension, this is just your body, whatever you go into, you see yourself however you are what you are. So however you imagine yourself or see yourself, that's what you do on the instant. So you have to be aware of that. And then the more and more you resonate into that, you could come out. You could go through the fourth dimension, fifth dimension, and then come out as a physical shape and form in the sixth dimension. Therefore, you have the totality of the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension. AKA, you will be a larger representation of what you are down here. You went through the first, second, and then you came out as a physical representation as a whole, as the third dimensional being. So you went through the masculine version of emitting yourself and trying to see. Then the first dimension. Then you went to the second dimension, your mother, relating it, bouncing it off something that's larger than you. Then you got the masculine and feminine and brought that together and created a shape and form for yourself to sustain yourself through that astral travel, aka your spaceship, your physical body that you have now. Now you have your spirit within the physical shapes and forms that brought you into the third dimension. So the first dimensional shapes and forms was your father's ideas and thoughts and blood cells. The second dimensional physical shapes and forms was your mother and all the things in her physical vehicles, and you learning how to relate and deal with the emotions and feelings. And then you brought both of those together and created a bigger organism to sustain yourself within that astral travel. Then you're going to be able to do that again. You see what I'm saying? So 4, 5, and 6 ain't nothing but 1, 2, and 3. 7, 8, and 9 ain't nothing but 1, 2, and 3. So you have to understand that. So on the totality, 1, 2, and 3 is 1. 4, 5, and 6 is 2. You know what I'm saying? 7, 8, 9 is 3. But it's the other way around. 7, 8, 9 is 1. 4, 5, and 6 is 2. You know what I'm saying? 1, 2, 3 is 3. So when you talk about the zero circumference, that's your space. That's your spirit. So your spirit is truly no thing. Space is no thing. It's just surroundings, awareness. You see what I'm saying? So, and all things could manifest and take shapes and forms based upon state of being within that space. So when you look at zero, zero adds to nothing, right? So not nothing the way scientists is trying to explain it, which we talk about zero right now, so they are right. But when we talk about the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional wise, zero is the hero or heroine, whatever you want to be as a female or male. But for the most part, zero equals space, more space. And it's your spirit. Your spirit is your space. So your spirit is no thing. It's no shape and form. You see what I'm saying? And it's just your space. Now, the bigger your spirit is, that means the bigger your space is. So that means the more shapes and forms you can emit within that space. That's like having a mansion here other than an apartment. You can have more shit in your space, more driveway, more yard. You know what I'm saying? Even to a point you can have a gate or live in a gated community. This is why people physically are in search for the things that we are doing in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension subconsciously. You see what I'm saying? So don't get too lost into try to go against things that you actually wanted to do here. You see what I'm saying? So also, when we talk about like having more space, that's your state of being, your spirit. So the more space you have, the more you can hold in your space. Now look at a person with a mansion compared to the person with an apartment. The person with a mansion gonna have more attention than a person with an apartment, and actually people gonna come up with all the thoughts and ideas that what makes this person's status a lot larger than a person with the apartment. Because the person with the mansion, you knew what they had to go through as far as through the astral realm in order to obtain a mansion, and then you know what circumstances a person is not doing for them to only have an apartment. So you get what I'm saying? So when we talk about your space in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension, this is always how you could pinpoint it, how this is your spirit. So for the most part, it's just your space. There's no thing, and you move based upon what you resonate with. And the more spirit you have, that means the more space you have, the more lights you can emit. So that means your space can attain more things in it, aka either more spaces, more people's spirit, or the more bullshit that they bring with their spirit, aka the more squares, the more shape and form, aka the more situations and circumstance you manifest as burdens or responsibilities in your life. But for the most part, if your spirit real big, you're able to handle more of these things, and you're able to and take more losses in these things, because your expansion and contraction is way more greater. Your spiritual heartbeat. You see what I'm saying? Now, if you don't have a large spirit, you know what I'm saying, and you have a very small space in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension. So your space get washed up by other people's space, get washed up by currents, aka in the 3rd dimension, you don't gain a lot of attention. You may be very unpopular. You may be a follower, you know what I'm saying? You may be washed up by other people's ideas, concepts, and terms and agreements, to the point that you cling on to these things like they're boats in the 4th, 5th, or 6th dimension. So when you're riding conscious waves, your boat is all shaky, but you're holding on for dear life. AKA in the 3rd dimension, say you're in a religious debate, or you're in some type of debate, and you're being backed and supported by some form of indoctrination. Now your indoctrination is getting washed all over, smacked around, click, clop, pop, pop, pop. People discovering all the flaws and holes in the boat and all that shit, but your ass is still want to cling on to that theology. So your ass still clinging on to that boat, regardless of how shaky and how much you know is about to flood in. You don't give a fuck. You like being at that beach on that specific current. So for the most part, just because it's getting washed and shit like that, you're holding on for dear life on that boat. So in the 3rd dimension, it's playing off as you coming off to your last hope of logic, your last hope of rationality, to the point that you just give it all up and be like, well, I'm just gonna believe this because I believe it, and ain't nobody gonna tell me it, because it's only something I can experience. So for the most part, that's you holding on for dear life on a weak ass boat in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension, getting washed up by currents and shit, and other people currents, and then you built that boat from somebody else's boat shop, and they boat shop was built, the whole shop, and whoever supporting and sponsoring that shop and paying for them to have commercials and shit, they under a type of government and shit like that, and voting for other shit that may not be necessarily good for you, just walking amongst and trying to go to that store in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension. If you get what I'm saying. You see what I'm saying? So you got to be very aware, you know what I'm saying, when you have a small spirit, aka a small space. When you ain't spiritually inclined in the 3rd dimension, that's you having a small ass space in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension. So you get washed up in all the kind of currents, and in the 3rd dimension, that's just you being a follower, you being indoctrinated, you getting clinging on to a specific educational system, to the point that you don't see it no other way. So the moment somebody else come around and got a whole different idea, you feel threatened. Like you don't even let the idea and whatever spiritual intellectual being created that property, you don't let them be offended. You jump and take the bullets for them. You get offended for that education system. You get offended for that indoctrination. You get offended for that religion. Therefore, you end up just being a pawn on the chessboard for the king and queen of that intellectual property, regardless of what it is. You go to spiritual warfare. You put yourself on the line. You put yourself on the field, and then you get your ass spiritually killed. So, like, and the spirit don't die. The spirit just moves into another space to create another shape and form, aka in the 3rd dimension, your ass get your ideas and thoughts and feelings and emotions and get killed, and you got to go into another way of thinking about things, another way of analyzing. Now you could go build a boat because you're scared to leave that space and cling on, but if you a person who wise enough, you'll know that that current is just too strong, and you going against that wave, and you ain't doing nothing but creating bad circumstances in your own life. You know what I'm saying? So it's better for you to be wise and go to a better store. Stop going to that store being led by those business sponsors and shit like that to try to make you think this Nike is better than Reebok. If you get what I'm saying. You see what I'm saying? So for the most part, you got to understand that this is what you're doing 24/7. There's no such thing as even 24/7, but that's what you're doing in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension. Like, that's what you're doing. So, you know what I'm saying? Be careful what stores you going to. Be careful what friends you have in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension. Because the friends you have in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension spiritually, in the 3rd dimension, depending on how lost you is, these things may play out just in your material that you have. Or something you may have. Or a friend you may have. Like, for an example, You got people around you every day who do not watch Archangel Uriel. So they share possibilities of being angels. You need to know that. So for the most part, a person who's not spiritually inclined in themselves, they stay in the sunken place. So, and they like being there because in the sunken place is like their personal jail cell, aka their pleasures, things they like to do. The moment somebody threaten that and be like, man, that shit dumb, they're gonna be looking at you like Sharif, like nigga, you trying to kick wisdom, or they're gonna be looking at you like motherfucking Nas and Belly when DMX like motherfucker fuck a book. You know. That's my part. But you know what I'm saying? But still, you know what I'm saying? You got to understand that you're going to be a person who's looked at like that. And a person is not going to, a person in a sunken place, they just going to want to stay there. So when you're around people, and then you watch Archangel Uriel or you're awakened some type of way, you need to know that you share those possibilities. So if you're around people that's like this, 9 times out of 10, if you're watching me, you are around people like this. This one person, they spirit already lost somewhere else. So other spirits could jump into them and use them as vessels. So a lot of times you're not even dealing with the same person. You need to know that. If you Neo or Trinity right now as male and females, and you in the Matrix, and you around people who is not watching Archangel Uriel, you need to know or they don't even gotta watch me, but you know you get this sense around people how much you feel comfortable with letting out what you're into it or not. Based upon a person talk and how they say things, you will know if this person wise or not. So let's not get lost into that. You know what I'm saying? You'll know who's comfortable. But if you're around people who you just know that you're deflecting and having a higher fight just being around people every day, just being around certain people every day, then you know this is them right here. So check this out. You ain't even gonna be fighting the same person every day. That's just an illusion. This person look like that, but all kind of spiritual beings and shit like that. A whole different spirit may attack you one day through this person. A whole another spirit will attack you through this person the other day and shit like that, to the point that if you, depending on how lost you is, you might take it out on the actual illusion, aka the physical person, to the point that you burn a bridge and you start to feel bad because you didn't necessarily mean to actually do that, and the situation didn't have to play out in that way. And you need to know that sometimes if you're spiritually more inclined, you're more powerful than the people you are around. So sometimes you got to have conviction within yourself and understand that sometimes things is your fault. If people are angry with you, it don't matter how much in the illusion it appear their fault. It's your fault for being in that circumstance or situation. If you're spiritually inclined, if you're not lost. If you're watching Archangel Uriel, something bad happened to you, it's your motherfucking fault. Ain't no fucking excuses around this goddamn way. But you need to know that, right? So sometimes we just want to experience, your spirit want to experience bad situations. So don't even get too bent about bad situations. It's all a learning process. But for the most part, just be when you might take it out on the actual physical person, and then that's when you get lost if you're spiritually inclined. See, the war get that much greater, because once you start having lights so big in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension, but you're still in the 3rd dimension, you're being seen now. And then other spirits gonna try to take that vessel, but if you spiritually know yourself, you already in it. So they can't put you in the sunken place with your light bodies in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension if you got conviction and you know yourself. You know what I'm saying? It's easy for a person, because, all right, for an example, you can look at people in the conscious community right now, right? Now, they are awakened in the 3rd dimension, but then the battle is much more greater. So once you get conscious, now you got a little light in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension. You can kind of be seen, because your concept and ideas can be shown to not rule, but can be shown to be agreed with a large amount of people in the 3rd dimension. So now you kind of being seen in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension. But then look at the conscious community. A lot of people in the conscious or scientific measures or even religious matters, a lot of them get put in a sunken place with their light bodies, because those bodies is so light. A lot of times it's hard to tap into those bodies and be like, I'm myself. So in the 3rd dimension, it'll play out as you having a new idea about what you got conviction on. Therefore, you start to add to the point you got to realize that you're adding light, you're adding information, aka you're adding some idea from somebody else, aka in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension, another spirit that went in your body and went in those light bodies and put your ass in a sunken place there. So in the 3rd dimension, you think you awoke. So you created a little spaceship in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension, but you flying around there, but you ain't even aware of that one yet, because you ain't watching Archangel Uriel. So your ass get put in a sunken place up there. So you end up being a conscious ass nigga in the 3rd dimension, or a conscious ass bitch in the 3rd dimension, but still be used as an agenda. And since you conscious in the 3rd dimension and you know so much in the 3rd dimension, this agenda, you might be unaware of it. So you start to gain all this traction and all this shit for whatever you think you created in the third dimension, let alone in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension, you still carrying out some motherfucker's agenda. And governments and elites know that in the third dimension. And they know how to utilize y'all motherfuckers who think y'all just waking up on something that they placed out here probably 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And then once they see a powerful spirit in a vessel, paying a lot of attention, aka putting a lot of their spirit in it, aka expanding that space, aka getting that shit a lot of attention and traction, elites sit back and be like, okay, let's utilize this motherfucker and get this motherfucker the right algorithms and resonations it need within the frequency vibrations of the world, whether it's the cell phone or internet or searching or whatever like that, or going out or schools, and then boom, this person will be the representation of whatever people quote unquote want to call the new conscious level. But in the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension, your ass is just fine being a motherfucking spiritual slave, going to war for a higher fight and a higher government. You got to be careful. This shit is motherfucking deep. I'm telling you, I don't tell no motherfucking lies. So, for the most part, like I say it, you know what I'm saying? Getting back into motherfucking and I didn't got into something else. I didn't got into how your ass is in retrograde. So that's how this whole video was supposed to be about how Venus in retrograde, but it didn't went into some whole other shit. So this is a deep video in general. You know what I'm saying? And this is the actual energy signature of retrograde and being in a state that you are actually stuck in and that you actually need to learn how to move forward in. So when we talk about Venus, right? Venus is love, appreciation, value, relativeness, compromising, you know what I'm saying, and things of that nature. When Venus is stuck right there, it depends on the sign. So it's stuck there in Scorpio. So people are forced to be stuck or look at past or even manifest familiar love, appreciation, value, relativeness, and compromising circumstances and situations. Backed and supported by the people, places, and things that you love, appreciate, value, and relate to. So right now is a time that you may dive in, indulge in. Right now is a time you may pay extra attention to the things that you was valuing, to the things that you appreciate, to the things that you relate to the things that make you feel good, the things that make you pleasure, the things that you desire. These are the things right now that you're paying extra attention to. And you're actually seeing more of it or experiencing more of it or paying attention or acting more upon these things than you did before. And then slowly but shortly that's going to manifest familiar circumstances and situations that involve those same things. So if you are a person who just naturally have bad relationships, who just naturally get into arguments with your friends, who just naturally unrelatable, who just naturally indulge, who just naturally unwilling to compromise, then right now you're just going to naturally have more time in that experience. So try to understand that and get yourself out of that mode if you're naturally like that, even when we're not in retrograde, because you're going to be forced to watch that movie. Like a part 2 and a part 3 came out to that movie, so you're forced to see that movie and you're forced to see part 1 again also. So if you make it to part 3, if you get what I'm saying. So it's like a new scenario, same energy signature, aka a new person, place, or thing back to supported by the same energy signature. When it comes to love, appreciation, value, relativeness, and compromising. So keep that in mind. Flight boss, bitch, goddamn air.